what's the word they use a lot? Catastrophic events happen.
Catastrophic.
That's the words on Google. Don't Google it. It's scary.
This is the good life. Oh, 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 oh. This is the good life. Oh, 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 oh. Out in the sunshine, nothing but good times.
I don't know how to start this video.
I don't either. Maybe that's how you start. the
We don't know how to start
video.
this video. This has definitely been an interesting pregnancy. Definitely way different than any pregnancy I've ever had in my life. I've only had 5. That's a lot. 6. I've had 6.
This is your 6th pregnancy,
6.
technically.
I had a miscarriage before Macy, 4 kids,
And this one.
and then this one.
He who shall not be named.
These will not happen. Like,
They already
we're
happened.
Here.
Oh,
No,
I see what you're saying.
These ones,
The rest of the hand.
this hand is not
Sealed.
coming up.
It's sealed.
It is
Sealed portion.
cut. It is.
Snip,
It
snip.
is cut. Real good. It's cut real good.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been way different. The beginning started out normal. Started out with
Sickness.
morning sickness for the first 16 weeks. That was pretty right on par with the other ones. That was really fun. We had like a, what's it called? An ulcer. We had an ulcer at about 18 weeks
That's where we had to rush to the hospital in the middle of the night.
because the pain was intense. Got that all figured out. We were like, okay, what else can go wrong, right?
Worst question you can ask.
Worst question you can ask. So we go to my 22-week ultrasound. Baby looks good. Baby looks great.
It's a boy!
It's a boy. That's all the information they give me. That's it. It was like 22 weeks, right?
Yeah, somewhere around the 20,
Because I think
22.
it was more. So we get home, and there's this app called Follow My Health. If your doctor has it, I highly recommend you downloading the app.
Or not.
You can find out a lot of information from
Way
your
more.
medical records
Way more than they intend, I think.
than what the doctor's going to tell you.
One of my favorite moments was when Alli said to the nurse, "Yeah, I saw in my records," and the nurse said, "Oh, I didn't know you could see that."
You can see that? So after my 22-week ultrasound, I see on my Follow My Health app that it says I have a low-lying placenta and check back at 28 weeks for the low-lying placenta.
No big
Okay,
deal.
no big deal. So of course, I Google low-lying placenta. No big deal. Happens a lot. Usually goes away. No big deal. Okay, we're good. I go to the 20-week ultrasound. No,
28 week.
that's not even true.
Oh.
So I go to my next appointment. He doesn't mention a lick about the low-lying placenta. He doesn't mention it, doesn't say anything. I Googled it, not really worried about it, so I didn't say anything either. At like my 26-week appointment, he says, "Hey, we're going to see you in 2 weeks to check out your low-lying placenta." And I'm like, okay, he finally mentioned it. Call Kyle. Hey, he finally said something about my low-lying placenta. We're like, okay, so we're just having an ultrasound to check on that.
I remember going to my principal before that ultrasound and saying, "Hey, so my wife has an ultrasound. They want to check up on some pregnancy stuff."
That's right, because I was going to go by myself.
Yeah, she can go by herself. No big deal. And I was like, I just don't want her to get any kind of bad news without me there. Everything we read says it's going to be nothing. But I might as well be there just in case.
Yeah.
Like, we were just like, yeah, there's nothing. This could be just a
Nothing wrong.
routine, no big deal, move along.
Google said it was going to be fine. Then we go to the ultrasound, and she's like, well, she doesn't say a word. Because she says my doctor is one of those doctors that's like, you're not allowed to say anything. And he gets kind of cranky if the ultrasound tech says anything. And so
Which makes sense. Like, it needs to
Yeah.
come from the doctor, because
Yeah.
that's why they're doctors.
So she's just like not saying a word. And we're just watching the ultrasound. So after the ultrasound, I have a doctor's appointment. Just right after. It was the ultrasound at like 8 a.m. and then my doctor's appointment is at like 9. So we go into the doctor and he says, so you have a couple things going on. I'm like, I know, low-lying placenta, right? I knew that. So he says, I have a placenta and then a bilobed placenta.
An accessory lobe.
An accessory lobe or a succulent. That was not the right word. Succulent?
Suckafish.
It starts with Succer.
It sucks. Whatever it is,
Yeah,
it sucks.
It sucks. It's causing a lot of problems. If you just start Googling sucker, like
Don't do that. Don't Google sucker.
Succer and then placenta, it will pop up. So I have just the normal placenta on one side of my uterus. It's actually posterior. We just found that out. So my placenta is posterior, and then I have a bilobe or an accessory that is anterior on my right side. That the accessory lobe is actually the one that's low lying. So that one is close to my cervix. They haven't said anything about the placenta being close.
Yeah.
We don't even know about that. So we find that out, and he's like, and we just have to see if there's any vessels connecting the two that are near your cervix. And I'm like, okay. And he kind of offhandedly said vasa previa. Like, okay. He did ask if we had questions.
But we don't know anything about
No.
this. We don't
No.
know enough information to have a question.
Yeah. So he says we're gonna set you up an appointment to see a specialist in the valley and just make sure those vessels aren't near your cervix. Okay. So we get in the car and I'm like, did he say placenta previa? Kyle's like, yeah, I think he said
Those
placenta
are the words we
previa.
know.
Yeah. Because I had never heard of vasa previa before. The only previa I've ever heard of is placenta previa. So we walked away from that appointment thinking they're just gonna check for placenta previa and there's something with vessels. Like, that's honestly what we came away with. Until I opened up my Follow My Health app and it says possible vasa previa. And I was like, hey, Kyle, this is different.
That's different. And I do
This
remember him
looks
saying
different.
accessory lobe. That one kept like, there's something accessory. Something.
Yeah.
Alli's extra. I remember thinking that.
There's something accessory and it was something previa. So Follow My Health said possible vasa previa. So I was like, okay, let's Google that. Bad idea. I mean, it was a good idea because then we realized, okay, this is way different than just placenta previa. This is like kind of scary. It's a little scary. So what happens if you have veins or vessels from the placenta that are near your cervix? Is if they rupture, your baby can start bleeding, and they're tiny, and so it doesn't take a lot of bleeding for, what's the word they use a lot? Catastrophic events happen.
Catastrophic.
That's the words on Google. Don't Google it. It's scary. It doesn't say they all don't make it, but it says you have there's like a 56% chance that your baby will make it.
Or have major
Like brain damage and stuff if it bleeds. And how those vessels would break is if the membranes or your water sac, if that were to break, it would cause that vein to break because the vein is so low, and that's usually where your water breaks, is by your cervix.
But it could also, my understanding too, is it could break without the sac breaking. It could break even before that, right? Because they said they don't even want the baby to start pregnancy.
So, what happens is the further your pregnancy gets, the baby starts getting lower and lower and lower, and the more pressure that's on the cervix. So if the baby's head is pushing up against those vessels, it can restrict blood flow.
Yeah. So like when you're sitting down too long and your leg falls asleep, but worse, right?
Yeah, because it's part of the baby's vessels because it's attached to the placenta and the umbilical cord. So at this point, it's just possible, right? Possible vasa previa. But now we're like,
just go see this doctor.
Yeah, we're gonna go see this specialist. But now we're on like pins and needles, like waiting for the specialist to call because we know we're gonna get an ultrasound and find out more answers because that's all we really want is more answers. The nurse had told me if they don't call within 2 weeks to call her back. 2 weeks go by and I haven't heard anything. I go to call her and I find out they're gone for a couple days. So I wait until the next Monday. So now we're at 30 weeks and I get a hold of my nurse and say, hey, they never called me. And she says, what? She called them to make an appointment, and I got a call back within an hour. So within an hour, we had an appointment for 1 week. No, it was 2 weeks.
Well, they said they lost the paperwork. Like,
Yeah.
they were never going to call. They lost it.
They didn't know that they were supposed to call. So then they finally called, and it was a week and a half later. So my appointment is set for 31 weeks and 5 days. It's been almost a month since my last ultrasound, where they couldn't see any vessels because their ultrasound machine wasn't good enough. So we needed to go to the specialist with a better ultrasound machine to be able to see those vessels.
To find out if there's a potential catastrophic event. So we're sitting here for a month going,
What's
This
going to
seems-
happen? We don't know.
this seems important. Seems like somebody should get us in.
Yeah. We finally have our appointment. We go to the doctor. We get into the ultrasound room and everything. And Kyle tries to be sly. And while they're looking at the cervix, we see the vessel. It's pretty blatant.
It's a colored Doppler, right?
It's like a squiggle. It's just is obviously there. So Kyle goes, is that the vessel?
No, I was worse than that. I was like, so that's the vein. So it must be vasa previa.
And she says, yeah, but I'm not going to be the one to answer those questions. And we were like, oh.
And it's also,
okay.
but I can see it. Like, you can say that, but I can obviously see it too.
Yeah.
It's right there on that big screen.
Mm-hmm. At this point, we're like, well, crap, right? There's a vessel there. There's a vein there. What does that mean?
We were such good Google doctors at that point. We kind of had an idea what we were going to look for. We knew like the numbers that were going to be there. We even saw her draw like on it. They have like this mouse and they string it over. And like one thing said 1.8 centimeters. So we're like, okay, that's within the range. Yeah. And, you know, we were pretty good Google doctors.
Real good Google doctors. We have the ultrasound, and then we go into a different room to talk to the doctor. And he sits down and he says, there's a vessel there, and it's 2 to 3 centimeters away from your cervix. And basically, I'm not quite sure if we're gonna call it vasa previa right now, but I need to talk to some other doctors in our office and find out what we do. Like, that's basically what he said about the vasa previa.
I think from the beginning he actually said it's 2 to 3 centimeters away. It's not directly over the cervix, so we won't call it vasa previa yet. But we'll keep an eye on it because it's not directly over the cervix. Because that's what my mind was like, wait a second. Everything we've Googled says anything under 5 centimeters is vasa previa. And so that's where I was like... And I tried to be like really respectful of it. I wasn't like, hey man, Google said...
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I'm just confused because I told him, we're Google doctors. And we've looked stuff up on Google. And Google said this. And he goes, oh yeah, I use Google all the time. Mm-hmm. That's what he said to us.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I just don't understand why you're saying it's not when Google said it was. And then he just kind of like said, yeah, that's what it... He's like, well, that's not what we need to talk to you about anyway. Like, uh-oh.
Yeah, so then he says, we did see a vein there, a vessel there, but we also saw this stuff wrong with the baby. He said there was shadowing on part of his brain, which could mean a brain bleed, which isn't good. And then on the top of his neck, I'm not even going to try to tell you the bones, but there's 2 bones that were a little further away from each other.
They're talking millimeters. He said, max you want 10 millimeters, and yours is measured at 12.5 millimeters.
Mm-hmm. So teeny tiny space.
Millimeters.
That's a little bigger than what we want it to be. And then on the bottom of his spine, there's some spleening between S4 and S5. Boom. Actually, that might have been up here.
No, because it was the very bottom.
Yeah. Splaying on those little bones. And what those things together could mean is spina bifida. And Kyle and I are both... Well, we weren't expecting that, right?
We're here for vasa previa.
Yeah. And now we find this out?
And he was really good about it. Like, he's like, I understand that's not why you were here. And we don't want to stress you out. I'm like, well, too late.
Yeah, done. But we want to get you in for a fetal MRI in a week to have a closer look of what's going on. And we're like, okay, like I've never had an MRI before. I didn't know you could even do a fetal MRI. I'm a very boring person medically. Like,
That's a good thing.
nothing. I mean, my doctor gave me iron supplements because he said I'm not anemic yet, but if he doesn't start giving them to me, I might be anemic. Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, I wasn't even anemic, and he was like, let's give you these pills. And so I'm like, okay, I'm very boring, right? The thought of getting like an MRI and the baby having problems and maybe needing surgery after it's born was just a lot. It was a lot. And then the vasoprevia on top of that, because then he goes out of the room to make the appointment for the fetal MRI. And then he comes back and he says, you know what? After you said what you said about Google and the 5 centimeters, he looked it up and Kyle was right.
Alli was right. She'd been doing all the research. I just vocalized it because Alli doesn't speak up and I do, which is a good team. It's good. We're a good team in that way.
Mesh well.
Because you need to advocate for
Yeah.
yourself. We've learned that through this whole process. Don't be jerks. Don't be cranky, but speak up.
Because it's a big deal. Like, a fetal vessel that could rupture is kind of a big deal.
It's kind of catastrophic.
It's kind of a big deal.
So he come
Okay.
back in the room and said, "Yeah, I googled it too." Actually, he went to medical journals. He said he looked at
Yeah.
my medical journals.
And so where the vessel is considered vasoprevia. He also said that he was going to talk to some other partners in his office, and it was like a patient collaboration essentially, and they would present this case and talk about it and figure out how everybody felt.
Because they basically said, "Yeah, vasoprevia is really rare. This isn't something we deal with very often."
Yeah, they said they have seen it in the past, but they don't come across it very often. They realized that we live 3 hours away and that it wasn't really convenient to come again in a week. They said, you know what, let's try to get your fetal MRI done tomorrow so that you guys can just stay the night and get this and find out answers, and let's just do this ASAP. Deal. We really like this plan. They set us up with Phoenix Children's Hospital, which is amazing, by the way. Like,
Yeah. We don't
legit.
recommend you have to go there, but if you have to go to one, that's
go to
the
that
one.
one. It's amazing. Like, from the cafeteria to the rooms to the doctor to the
To the nurse tour guide.
everything about that hospital was a really good experience. We wake up bright and early Friday morning. We check in with our tour guide, which is really who it was.
They literally assigned a nurse to Alli that just was with us all morning. Like, the sign-in lady, like, even handed Alli a paper, and then the tour guide nurse was like, I'll put it, I have a folder for you already here. She just collected all the paperwork for us.
She collected my cards. Like, I had a card from the doctor and a card from the nurse and a card
From her.
And she had this book. Well, it was a 3-ring binder that she was organizing everything into. And she showed me where to get dressed, and this is going to be your locker. When things seemed like it was taking too long, she would go out and figure out what was taking longer, and then she would come back and tell us. Then we would talk for a little bit, and she'd say, I'm gonna go check again. And so she would go check again. So it was awesome, like, from the beginning to the end. She had meal tickets for us because we were there really early, and I couldn't eat breakfast before the MRI. So they had meal tickets for us, and she took us to the cafeteria and just dropped us off and said, I'll meet you at those 2 chairs in 45 minutes.
She even gave us a tour of the meal. She's like, there you can get a burrito. They have bagels over there, fresh fruit over there. She gave us a tour of the cafeteria.
Yeah, she was amazing. And sure enough, right on the dot of when she said she was going to be back, she came and picked us up. And then we went to go talk to the doctor, and we got another ultrasound there. We had the ultrasound tech come in, and then the doctor followed him in. He was the nicest, most down-to-earth,
Humble.
awesome, knowledgeable doctor I've really ever used. And like I said, I'm a very boring person medically, so that probably doesn't mean a lot. I've probably only seen like less than 10 doctors in my life, but he's by far the best. And actually, the specialist from the day before, he had said, I need to get you a fetal MRI with this doctor. He's the best you could get. He was even the priority of my OB specialist. So we go in and they start doing the ultrasound. They knew that the ultrasound tech the day before had seen stuff on the top of the spine and the bottom of the spine, but the MRI didn't show it. And so they said, we want to do another ultrasound because we know the ultrasound tech saw what she saw, but we want to try to recreate it on this ultrasound machine so that we can try to figure out what it is she saw, because the MRI wasn't showing what she saw, which was a good thing. And that means there wasn't a brain bleed and the space was fine, like the bones were fine. He starts doing the ultrasound and he's going over the spine of the baby, and the guy's just awesome.
So it was first the tech guy, and he was just doing his own thing, and they were like, this guy, don't worry, this guy is awesome, he sees hundreds of these things. And the guy was like, no, I've seen thousands of these. And they were looking at the spine, just really going through and numbering each vertebrae. And
but usually he doesn't work on a fetus.
they're already born by the time he gets them.
Yeah. They're like outside of the womb is when he usually looks at them.
So the main radiologist, he was like just dying because he wanted it. You could tell he just wanted to take over for that other guy.
He kept saying like, well, put it this way, and he kept like telling him how to use it, because he used to be an ultrasound tech, and then he went into OB, and then he went into radiology.
Yeah. So finally he's like, hey, you don't mind if I jump in, right? And the tech was like, you could tell he was just like in awe of this guy. He's like, you absolutely, you're the man, you jump in. And he even turned to us and he goes, you guys, he basically said, this guy is the best ever. Like, I'm just lucky to be watching him do this. And then the other guy, like another guy's like the humblest guy in the world. Like, he didn't care.
The actual doctor.
The actual radiologist. And he goes, have you ever heard my story? And he wasn't talking to us. He was talking to the tech. He goes, have you ever heard my story? And the guy was like, no. And then he tells a story, which I think was just, I even told my choir class this story because I think it's the coolest story ever. Because he said he's from Brazil. He went and got trained on ultrasound, but the hospital in his town couldn't afford an ultrasound machine. So he had all this training to be an ultrasound, but no ultrasound. So he said he sold his car and his motorcycle to buy an ultrasound for his like private practice. And then he made a deal with the hospital that said, I'll do your ultrasounds if you promise to send me all of your ultrasounds. You have to send me even the people that can't afford it, people without insurance, everybody. You send me everybody for ultrasounds and I'll do all your ultrasounds.
And he would do the ones that didn't have insurance or the ones that couldn't afford it. He would just do those for free if the hospital would send the other ones also.
So he got, basically in his town, I mean, he basically did every ultrasound that ever came through. And he talked about how his ultrasound, he bought it in Brazil. It wasn't a high tech. He said
it only had like 3 buttons on it. And then he's like, then you come here and there's thousands of buttons.
He said it had 3 buttons, and he said he just had to get really good at reading ultrasounds because he read so many of them, and with just not good technology, but just that much experience reading them, that when he came here, now he has all the tools at his disposal. Anyway, he was showing this guy, he was like, so here's what you can do, and you can do anyway, all this stuff, and the guy was like, why are we not using this? Why are we not? Anyway, they were just, it was really funny because they were just geeking out over this stuff.
At one point, the radiologist had got a really clear picture of the baby's spine, and the ultrasound tech was like, oh, that's beautiful. And Kyle and I are like, what?
Alli like looked up, like waiting to see a picture of the baby, and it was the spine.
The spine. Like, good spine up there.
Yeah, and they're like, look, I can do this color on it, and they were the biggest radiology nerds ever.
Yeah.
And I loved it. We loved having a big nerd.
So then they went over the heart, and the radiologist is like showing him different parts of the heart, and I'm more interested in like, is that heart looking good? Like, this is okay heart? And they're like, look, if you do this, and just showing all these things. And finally I was like, is that a pretty good heart right there? And he's like, oh yeah, it's good. And just like move on.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to be able to see this radiologist work on our baby. Like, not only did we get an MRI to make sure everything was good, but he like did a thorough exam on
of the baby.
This one.
And like when they first diagnosed the vasa previa, they had to use like special tools and stuff to be able to see it. But this guy was so good at the ultrasound, he was just like, oh, there it is right there, and there's the distance it is between. I mean, he literally just boop, 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 boop,
he was very fast. So I think the blessing with that was to get the MRI, even though everything was fine with the baby, is that we got his opinion on the vasa previa. And he said he would classify it as a vasa previa. He said anytime you have fetal vessels that are that close to the cervix, who's to say there's a difference between 2 centimeters or 3 centimeters? If it's that close, you should treat it as vasa previa. He was pretty straightforward with that. Yeah, I would classify that as vasa previa.
He even used terms like, yeah, we did this study on vasa previa and we
that
found...
like they published.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this guy knows.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because the next part of the story, because he went back and talked to the first doctor.
Yeah. So I think we forgot a part. When we left the first doctor, so my specialist, we had an MRI the next day, and then the plan was an ultrasound in 2 weeks to see how it was going, basically. So that was the plan on Thursday when we left the specialist. Then on Friday is when we had the MRI and we talked to the really cool radiologist. After the appointment with Phoenix Children's, we went away with the baby's fine, but he would definitely classify it as vasa previa.
So by fine, we should clarify, no
spina bifida.
No spina bifida. He said, I do see what the other guys saw, but you don't need to worry about it.
So usually on severe cases of spina bifida, there's basically a bubble. There's a kind of a hole in the baby's back, and there's this bubble with like spinal fluid, I think, and stuff in there. And the baby's back is completely closed, and it all looks really good. He said if we notice a cave on his back or dimples when he's born, that we should probably bring him in and get it reevaluated. But as far as he can see, he won't need surgery or anything when he's born, and he looks pretty healthy.
And just as far as doctors go, he was so cool about that too, because he's like, and if I get this wrong, I just ask for your forgiveness right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's from Brazil. He's straight from Brazil. Awesome guy. He's like, I ask for your forgiveness right now. I usually am pretty good at this. I have got it wrong before. He's like,
no, he said, I got it wrong once.
Yeah.
And it still bugs me. Like, yeah.
But like, what doctors are going to admit that? I got it wrong once, but and he wasn't anyway. He's like, I asked them for forgiveness.
And I did forget that after the ultrasound, he was like, you got to see these MRI images though. So he went and found an empty room. It was basically like a conference room that he took us into, and logged into his username and everything, and then pulled up our fetal MRI.
And we should say, sorry, beforehand, they were our nurse guide and the tech and them were all talking just in the room with us, not to us. And they were talking about his day later that day, and he was like, yeah, just make sure I get a time. I need to get some sleep. I've been on call for 5 days, and I'm just really tired. He's like, it's fine. Just make sure I can find some time to get sleep in there. I was like, gee. But then he turns to us, and you would never know he was tired at all. He never. Was like, I need to be short with you because I've been on call for 5 days and get out of here as fast as you can. He was just like, I'll spend as much time with you guys as you guys need.
So we go in the conference room, and there's a big TV in there, it's just a conference room. And so he pulls up the MRI images, and they were amazing. Like, it looked like they just took a picture of the inside of our body. Like,
chopped in half.
Because it was me and the baby. So you can see like all my organs and everything. And then you can see this uterus in the middle that takes up a lot of room, by the way.
It's true.
A lot of room. And this baby right in the middle of this circle, And he showed us the pictures of the spine, and it was so cool. I wish I had pictures. I keep checking Follow My Health. I finally got the report of it in Follow My Health, but I haven't gotten any pictures or anything. So after we see all this stuff, we probably spent a good 20 or 30 minutes with him going over the MRI. After we had just spent like 20 or 30 minutes in the ultrasound, we hop in the car and we're on our way home with the impression that we're going back in 2 weeks to figure out this vasa previa thing, and then the baby's good, right? We get home, we say hi to the kids, and Kyle and I retreat to our bedroom because it's been a long couple days and we need to kind of talk to each other and decompress a little bit. So we're laying there, and I didn't have my watch on, and so I didn't realize I got a notification, but my specialist had called. And then I had another missed call from that same doctor, and it was the receptionist. The receptionist had called. So I open up the voicemail because he left like a 2-minute voicemail. So I open up the voicemail and he says, "Hey, it's me." He's like a little nervous to be leaving this voicemail, but he says, "I talked to the radiologist and I talked to another doctor in our office, and we decided that we are going to treat this right now as vasoprevia. And what we're going to do, instead of coming in 2 weeks, I want you to come back in a week. And if the vessel has not moved, then we're going to admit you to the hospital and start steroids for the baby's lungs and probably do a C-section between 34 and 35 weeks. So if you could give us a call back to schedule that ultrasound in a week, well, I'll see you then. Safe travels. And all right."
All good.
What did he say?
The end was the best. Like, all right, all good.
Oh, very good.
Very good.
Yeah, he said, "All right, very good. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye." I'm like,
Very good.
"What? You just told me I'm gonna, might have to get admitted to the hospital a week, and you're just like..."
And have a baby in 2, right? Like,
very good.
like,
Bye-bye. But I'm sure you don't know how to end that voicemail. Like, what do you say? You know? And so he was trying to be the best he possibly could to leave this. So Kyle and I are laying in bed, and we're both just like, "Oh my gosh, like we thought we had a plan for 2 weeks, and now you're telling us, just kidding, let's go a week and we might admit you."
My best way to describe it was, I remember sitting on the bed. I'll remember this probably forever. Sitting on the bed and going, "This is a roller coaster ride." And I remember sitting on the bed going, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." Like I literally just felt like we were on the world's craziest roller coaster.
It was a lot
of emotions and plans changing.
Because at first, like when we very first talked to him, he's like, "Yeah, it could be vasoprevia, but I'm going to talk to some other people. We'll see you in 2 weeks." Like kind of nonchalant about it, you know. He was way more worried about the spina bifida and the spine. So then when we go to the radiologist, and the radiologist is like, "Nah, spine's good." We're like,
vasoprevia, you need to worry about.
Yeah.
Right?
Now
he's back to the vasoprevia.
Now you need to worry about the vasoprevia. But we're still like, "Well, our specialist didn't say that." And then we get a voicemail from the specialist that's like, "Yeah, I'll see you in a week." So then I call him because he said the office had said to call back to schedule an ultrasound. So then I call and I talk to him, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna treat you as vasoprevia. We need to see you in a week." Talks me through being admitted, and then says, he didn't say this part when we left the next day. He says, "Your threshold for contractions is 0. Like, if you have any tightening," which I probably haven't listened to.
Yeah, she said tightening.
At all. But it was happening like before that appointment. So they're not like contractions.
We're just getting to Friday.
Yeah, we're just getting to Friday. And it's already almost Wednesday, so. Anyway, your threshold for contractions is like 0. Like if you feel it, go in, get checked. We have to make sure this vessel doesn't rupture.
Yeah, we literally went from, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Come back in a couple of weeks. We'll take a look." But, I mean, he was really nonchalant. Like, "Yeah, it's far enough away. Don't worry about it." To, "If you feel anything, go straight to the hospital." Like, roller coaster.
Yeah, so that's where we're at now. I have my next appointment in 3 days. And at that appointment, we're going to find out if I'm being admitted that day or not. Everything that I have looked up online says it's very unlikely that the vessel is going to move. Vessels can move because your uterus grows, but it usually moves if you get diagnosed at like 20 weeks because your uterus has a lot more space to grow. I have not found anywhere that someone got diagnosed at 32 weeks and it moved by 33.
Especially moved
I haven't
that far.
found that. Yeah, because it would need to move a couple centimeters. So right now, we're waiting to go to the doctor on Friday to find out if I get admitted. So far, at every turn, we have come across something new and different that we weren't
Some
expecting.
surprise.
So part of me does not expect it to go that smoothly. Like, I don't feel like we're just gonna pop into the ultrasound and then go to the doctor and then him be like, okay, let's put you in the hospital. Like, that seems way too cut and dry for me. Like, something else is going to
Change.
happen. Something's gonna happen. We just don't know what. So that's the plan right now.
And right now we're grateful for good people around us. Like Allie's parents are going to come and stay with the kids. So the kids are going to have fun with grandma and grandpa. And Allie and I are going to go try to have a baby.
Find out what happens.
Because again, according to the doctor now, the plan is to have a baby between 34 and 35 weeks, which is
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks away. So
Which is way sooner than my original due date of November 21st.
So Allie's not telling you the whole story. She told you the whole story. But then we had to go shopping. So now we've been to the store.
We had to go shopping because we don't have diapers. We didn't have wipes. Didn't. We have a package of diapers and a package of wipes now.
Had to
And
buy clothes.
I looked at our newborn clothes and we only had like 3 or 4 newborn outfits. This is all stuff I've been like just not even dealing with, right? We have the crib set up in Bentley's room and just everything in the crib. Like tags still on clothes, everything. So I finally went through all the clothes we had from Bentley and then the clothes that we had bought. And then we had to go shopping because the poor baby didn't have enough clothes, especially if it's going to be like born at 35 or 36 weeks. It's probably going to be in newborn clothes for a little bit. So we had to buy some newborn clothes, but I washed those today. So now we have washed clothes and diapers and wipes. That's
We're ready.
really all you need,
Bring
right?
on a baby. I told her there's many countries that's too much, right?
Yeah. I even washed 2 blankets. So now the baby has some blankets. We have more blankets. I just washed 2.
We're good. We have a car seat. Allie's brother sent us a car seat long time ago.
long
so
time
we're ready
ago.
to go there.
Got pacifiers.
Yeah. We're good.
I needed to go buy diapers and wipes though. Like, I do feel a lot better now that we did that. The interesting thing is we might be
Allegedly.
delivering this baby 3 hours away from home, which we've never done before. And so that will be different.
And preemie. We've never had a preemie before. So the baby's going to be in a NICU for some length of time. Could be a day. Could be weeks. We don't know. So many unknowns.
There's lots of unknowns. But with a 34 to 35 week baby, there's a lot better odds that he won't have to be there very long. That's positive.
And crazily enough, everything says it's way safer for the baby to be in a NICU at that point than to be potentially rupturing this vessel.
That's where the vasa previa thing comes in, is the doctors have to weigh the safety of growing inside the uterus versus the vessel rupturing. So he said there's a computer algorithm actually that tells them when the safest time to deliver the baby would be, and it's between 34 and 35 weeks.
Crazy.
So that's what's been going on in our life. It's hard because it's not a lot, but emotionally it feels like a lot.
And if you look at Allie from the outside, everybody looks at Allie and goes, oh, we heard you're going to the hospital, you're in trouble. But she looks fine, right? There's nothing on the outside that says, oh no.
And besides just normal pregnancy stuff, I mean, yeah, my back hurts and sometimes my belly's sore, because it's growing. It really is a normal pregnancy. It's just that delivery part that is not normal.
One little vein causing all this problem.
One little vein in this dang accessory lobe. Like, where'd that come from? Like, what's it doing in there?
Allie's extra. That's what we like to say.
Extra.
She's a little extra.
Extra.
We've told the story a few times, and lots of people have questions. So hopefully this answers people's questions, and we don't understand all of it either. So
it's not placenta previa.
Yeah.
That's different.
That's what most people think. Oh, placenta previa, and we did too. That was part of our story, right? When we first heard it, we thought the same thing.
But it's not the same. And if you go to Google it, it's vasa previa type 2.
One of the parts I'll always remember was Allie looking up one of the medical journals And like the lead title or the lead sentence. What did it say? The lead sentence.
There is perhaps no more catastrophic event that can happen to a fetus than the rupture of a vasa previa vessel. Like catastrophic.
Way to lead out the event, right? Way to lead out.
I really wanted to just like close the computer and okay, I'm done Googling for the day.
And that's why they tell you not to Google, I guess.
But then I had to continue reading the article, so I finished it.
Which is the same article that told us about the 5 centimeters and some of the good information that we were able to help advocate for ourselves and things.
So a lot of the information that we have been finding is really from like journals and stuff, and it's not just like WebMD. So I guess that's good. Welcome to our wild ride. We'll see what happens on Friday.
Yeah.
Because who knows? Things could. I don't know.
Friday they may say it moved 5 centimeters, and we'll be like,
Weird, huh?
check again.
Yeah,
But-
I don't believe it.
Stay tuned. We'll have a baby soon.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
But
Whatever happens, we know we're in good hands. It's gonna be good. Just don't know when. Just don't know when it's gonna happen.
All right, we got some crazy kids that need to go to bed.
Time for bed.
So, we're out. Good night, crew.
Good night, crew. See ya later.